On November 24, 1971, a man in a business suit walked off a Boeing 727 with $200,000 and was never seen again, and the FBI still doesn't know if he survived. For 50 years, the official story has held firm. D.B Cooper jumped into darkness over the Pacific Northwest, the money strapped to his body, and almost certainly died in the attempt. The odds were terrible, jumping at night in rain with no visibility, wearing a business suit and loafers. The math seemed to settle it. He couldn't have made it. Case closed. Except the evidence doesn't actually close anything. It just stops. Let's start with what Cooper did know. He boarded Northwest Orient Flight 305 from Seattle to Tacoma carrying a briefcase. Mid-flight, he opened it to reveal what he claimed was a bomb. He showed the flight attendant a glimpse, enough to convince her it was real. Then he made his demand: $200,000 in $20 bills, a parachute, and safe passage to Mexico City. The captain, William Scott, made a decision under pressure with incomplete information. He believed the threat was credible. He ordered the plane to descend, requested the ransom money from the airline, and landed in Tacoma. Authorities surrounded the aircraft. Cooper held his ground, cool, polite, methodical. He released all 36 passengers in exchange for the money and 2 parachutes. Then, somewhere over southwestern Washington, he lowered the rear stairs and jumped. The official analysis was straightforward. Jumping at night over dense forest in a rainstorm, wearing dress shoes and no visibility gear, the survival probability was negligible. The FBI concluded he likely died. His body was never found. His parachute was never found. Neither was most of the money. Case solved by mathematics. But here's where the consensus starts to fracture. In 1980, a boy found $5,800 of the ransom buried along the Columbia River nearly 9 years after the jump. The money was real. The serial numbers matched. So some of it survived. If some survived, why not all of it? And if the money was there, where was Cooper? The FBI's death by probability argument had a fatal flaw. It assumed Cooper had no experience. What if he did? Investigators later learned that a man matching his description had inquired about parachute training years before. What if he jumped before? What if he knew the terrain? What if he'd studied the flight path? Suddenly, the math shifts. In 2016, the FBI received new information. A former convict claimed his brother was Cooper. He provided details, specific knowledge about the flight, the money, the jump that hadn't been publicly disclosed. The FBI investigated. They found no conclusive proof, but they also couldn't disprove it. The case remained open officially for the first time. Here's the real calculation. Cooper made 4 strategic decisions under pressure. First, he chose a Boeing 727, a plane he apparently knew had a rear stairs that could lower mid-flight. Second, he demanded $20 bills, specifically lighter, easier to carry than hundreds. Third, he jumped over Washington State, not California or Oregon, terrain he may have known. Fourth, he took only 2 parachutes, suggesting he knew which one would work. These weren't the choices of an amateur. They were the choices of someone who'd planned this for months, possibly years. Someone who understood aircraft mechanics, geography, and risk calculation. The FBI's assumption that Cooper was desperate or delusional may have been their biggest mistake. They were hunting a desperate man when they should have been hunting a strategist. The money found in 1980 raises an uncomfortable question. If Cooper died, why would the money be scattered along a river he jumped over? The Columbia River runs parallel to his flight path. If he landed in the forest, jumped into water, or ditched the money to move faster, the deposit makes sense. If he survived, it makes even more sense. The FBI's official position shifted in 2016. They announced they were no longer actively investigating the case, but they didn't close it. They downgraded it. The distinction matters. A closed case is solved. A downgraded case is abandoned. They were walking away not because they'd found answers, but because they'd run out of leads. So what really happened? The most rational explanation isn't that Cooper died. It's that Cooper succeeded. He was experienced, prepared, and strategic. He chose his variables carefully: the plane, the route, the money denomination, the weather. He jumped into darkness with a specific plan, landed in difficult terrain, and disappeared into a country that in 1971 was far less connected, far less surveilled than today. Could he have died? Absolutely. The jump was dangerous, the conditions were brutal, and luck matters. But the evidence doesn't prove death. It just proves disappearance. And disappearance in a world with fewer cameras, fewer databases, fewer ways to track a man, disappearance was possible. It still is. The cost of not knowing is that we're left with a mystery that doesn't resolve. Cooper took something from us, not just money, but closure. The FBI spent decades hunting a ghost, not because the ghost was necessarily real, but because they couldn't prove he wasn't. That uncertainty, that open loop, is what makes this case endure 50 years later. What we know with certainty is this: a man boarded a plane with a bomb threat, collected $200,000 and vanished. Some of the money resurfaced. None of him did. The FBI, with all its resources, couldn't answer a simple question: is he alive or dead? 50 years later, we still don't know. The real story of D.B Cooper isn't about a criminal. It's about a decision made under pressure by a captain, by an airline, by law enforcement, based on incomplete information. It's about a man who understood his variables better than anyone hunting him did. And it's about how, sometimes, the best strategy is to disappear so completely that no one can ever prove you're gone. Subscribe. Every week brings a new unsolved case, where the official story cracks under scrutiny.